What it do, everyday people, man? It's your boy PJ. We back with another lit live video. Man, we in this hole. We in the thing. Party boys. I mean, no reason to party. I mean, occasion unless you're from New Orleans, then you can party. But shout out to all my New Orleans. We up in this thing. Shout out to everybody that's from Louisiana. I got a friend that's from Louisiana. She crazy. She be tripping. But I'll be going to that car show though. Out there. Um, Shout out to my everyday people, man. Shout out to the mods who are in the chat, man. Y'all always coming through in a real way. Shout out to everybody who's following me on Twitch. If you don't follow me on Facebook or Twitch, you need to follow me everydaypj on Facebook and Twitch. Okay. I guess before I get started, I could just give y'all a rundown of a situation with Katrina. I was actually supposed to go help out in Katrina, like post Katrina, and doesn't really matter. But um, the day I was leaving to drive down to New Orleans to make a living to help out people, or not help people, but help to clean up. He's paying good money to clean up. Well, my probation officer decided, no, you don't need to go. We're going to lock you up. She violated my probation and locked me up. What a bitch, you hear me? She was tripping, but it is what it is. So thank you to everybody who's pulling up in the chat so far. We about to get this thing started. We got some um, stories from Katrina, really, pretty much. I know y'all been watching. As my brother T6 says, and Joker TV says, please misspell all the cuss words in the chat. Okay, we ain't gonna be getting crazy tonight, but we just gonna keep it light. Let's get it going.
So I am a Hurricane Katrina victim or evacuee, whatever you want to call it. And I see everybody telling their story because the documentary came out. So I want to tell my story because it is a unique story. So, boom. I'll never forget. I was 12 years old, and we stayed in West Bank. We stayed on the West Bank in Algiers, and days leading up to the storm, I remember like they would come on the news and be like, "Oh, it's only a hurricane. It's only a Category 2. Just border up your house. Like you'll be fine. Stock up on food. Like go to the grocery store. Blah blah blah." Like they always say, because we used to hurricanes. Then the day before Katrina, which was August 28th, my mama was pregnant, and she was due to have a baby within like the next few hours or like the next day or something. And so we were going to stay in New Orleans. My whole family evacuated to different places, but for the most part, most of my family evacuated to Mississippi because that's like where our people from. And so everybody evacuated to Mississippi, but my mama was like, "Oh, we just going to stay because I'm about to have a baby. We going to go to the hospital. We going to be fine." Right? The day before the storm, I remember it like days before, he was on the news saying like, "Oh, now it's a Category 3. Like, if you can evacuate, go ahead and do that. Like, if you get out, get out. But if you're not going to leave, do this, do that. Make sure you have flashlights, candles, like the power going to go out. Like this and that is going to be crazy." The day before the storm, I remember that man was on that news screaming at the top of his lungs. He damn near was cursing on the news. He was like, "Get out. It is a Category 5 hurricane now. Get out. Do not stay in New Orleans. Do not try to ride this thing out. You will not make it. You're going to die. And if you don't die, you're going to be stranded for a very long time. He was screaming at everybody. And I remember going outside and looking at the sky, and the sky was like the clouds, the sky, the whole like earth was red. I don't know if anybody else remember that, but I will never forget that sky. The sky was like a bright orange red color, and I remember going outside and looking at the sky, and I called my sister and my mama. I was like, "Ma, like Brittany, like look at the sky, like that's crazy. It looked crazy outside, like it looked scary, like it looked like the sky was on fire, like this red." And then I remember, I don't know what, like, oh, actually, I do know what happened. So my mama called her doctor, who was gonna perform the delivery, and she was like, "Hey, like me and my daughters, we just packed up a little bag, literally like an overnight bag, because we was used to this." She was like, "We about to head to the hospital. Like, what do you think?" And my mama doctor told her straight up, she was like, "Stacy, look, take your girls and get out of this city, because it's gonna be bad. Y'all not gonna want to be in this hospital. It's already crazy right now. Like, if I was you, I would not stay here and try to have that baby. Take your kids and leave." By this time, it was about 5, 6 o'clock, like, or it had to be maybe like 2, 3 in the afternoon, anywhere from 2 p.m. to like 5 p.m. in the afternoon, the night before the storm. Mind you, the storm hit the next morning. So mama was like, "All right." So she was like, "We about to hit the road. Like, we about to try to get out as far as we can. Like, at this point, it's so many people trying to evacuate. It's so much traffic. People just trying to go wherever." So we started heading west. And if you from New Orleans or you've been to New Orleans, you know how they have Lake Pontchartrain, that long bridge over the water. So we start driving that way. And I don't remember if we was heading to Mississippi or if we was just driving. I don't know. My mama probably wasn't even in her right mind, because she was literally about to go into labor. And we just started driving. I remember I was in the back seat, my sister was in the front seat, and my mama was driving. It was just us three, because my stepdad was a cop at the time, so he stayed back and, served his duty as a cop. And we started driving, and normally it takes about 45 minutes if you speeding to like an hour to get to Baton Rouge, which is like right down the street from New Orleans. So we started driving, and my mama started having contractions. And I remember she was driving, and she was just rubbing her stomach, and she was breathing real heavy. She was just like, and she was just driving. But it was standstill traffic. You couldn't get nowhere. So we was stuck on the bridge on top of Lake Pontchartrain, and it was literally like standstill traffic. It took us 5 hours to get out of that traffic. It was so much traffic, like people was just like standing on the bridge. Like you could just get out your car and just chill on the bridge and like look at the water, because you ain't going nowhere. And my mama just started having her contractions. She started going, and my mama was like overdue. She was like 10 months pregnant. She wasn't like, it was like that baby was coming. He was coming. And we call my little brother Storm to this day, because, he came, his birthday was like literally the day of the storm. So we drive for like 5 hours, and I think we was trying to head to Mississippi to get to like my grandma and my aunties and my uncle and everybody. But my mama just pulled over the first time, like the first stop she could, the first exit she could, because she was like, "I'm about to have this baby. Like, I need to stop, like wherever." So we stopped in Baton Rouge at the Women's Center or something like that. It was a hospital where they literally like are known for just like giving birth. We stopped there and we ran in there. We was just like, "My mama about to have a baby. My mama about to have a baby. We from New Orleans. Like we just evacuated. Like she needs a doctor." So they was like, "All right, like it's real busy right now. Like it's a lot going on. The storm about to hit." All these people came to the hospital because, everybody who was having a baby, I guess, was in there trying to have a baby. And my mama didn't have a doctor. That wasn't her doctor. Like, that like their system set up for that, I guess. So they put us in the waiting room. and we sat on chairs. My mama she was sitting on a chair and she had her feet on a chair in front of her. And we just sat in the waiting room for, I don't even know how long. It was hours. Like, it took forever for them to finally come and see us. And we just watching the news in the waiting room. And we watching and they saying like, oh yeah, it's going to be crazy. And then it became dark. It was nighttime, the night before Katrina. And we just sitting there like waiting on our fate. And then finally they put us in a room. And me and my sister, we like slept on the little chairs, like so uncomfortable. And then the next they put my mama like on like all the stuff or whatever, and my brother didn't come yet. So the next morning, we watching the news, we hear helicopters outside of the hospital, and we was like, what's all that noise? Like, what's going on? And then the nurse was telling us like, oh, people are getting airlifted to this hospital from the city, from New Orleans. And we was like, airlifted, like what happened? Like, how was the hurricane? Like, cause we could hear it. It was raining and storming where we was at, but it wasn't that bad. We turned on the news. When I tell you, when we saw that water all the way up to the roofs of people's houses and people laying on their house, drawing out the word SOS, we looked at each other like, what? We literally packed the overnight. I had like one pair of panties, one outfit, and that's it. And we looking at each other like, what is going on? So then my mama finally goes into labor, and she ended up having my brother on the 30th. Now, the day after Hurricane Katrina hit, Hurricane Rita also hit. And Hurricane Rita hit a lot of Mississippi and Louisiana and New Orleans too. So that really took everything out. And we didn't know where everybody was at, because once Rita hit, everybody lost cell service. It was no way you could contact nobody in certain parts of Mississippi, which where my whole family was, and all of New Orleans. So nobody knew where we was at. Nobody knew that we had made it or not to Baton Rouge. Nobody, like our family had no idea where we was. My stepdaddy didn't know where we was at. We literally could not contact nobody. And the story gets crazier after that. But my brother was born, and come back for part 2. So I am a Hurricane Katrina. Okay, y'all, I'm back for part 2. Sorry, I fell asleep and I woke up to all these.
I gotta do a small interjection. When the newsman said, "Get your ass out of there," I mean, so as I hear these stories, I know y'all go through hurricanes a lot. Y'all be like, "Oh, I'll just survive." See, sometimes y'all need to listen. We here in Oklahoma, we get tornadoes, which is nothing like a hurricane, but it's hit or miss. But when the weatherman says, if you're in the South Oklahoma City area, or you're in the Mustang area, or you're in Choctaw area, get down to your storm shelter now. We get down. I tell you what, I lost everything from my 14-year-old daughter. Everything. She don't have a baby picture. She don't have her baby booty. She don't have a baby blanket. She don't have nothing. Nothing from her baby, because that house was wiped out. The house was completely trashed. It was gone. Boat gone. Car gone. Everything gone. And my daughter's grandma was stuck in a storm cellar for like 8 hours. But when they said get your ass down, and actually y'all could look that up, because that's when the elementary school got hit and like 11 kids lost their lives or something, or like it was some couple kids lost their life. We lived on that same street, flattened that whole area. So listen, when they say this, get down, nigga, get down. Quit trying to be, oh, we can make it. No, you can't.
Messages. So boom, nobody knew where we was at. We had no cell service. My stepdaddy did not know that my mama had the baby yet. So we were still in the hospital, and all these women started getting airlifted to the hospital that we was at, and the havoc had already took place. So a lot of people from like different magazines and news stations was heading down, like trying to get to New Orleans. So People magazine came to the hospital that we was at, And this lady wanted to interview my mama and me and my sister because my mama had just had my little brother. Like, she had, it was like a day or two after my mama had my brother. Like, it was very, very close. So she interviewed my mom, and she was like, so where's the father of the baby? And my mama was like, well, he a police officer, so he's still in New Orleans. We haven't talked to him. He don't even know where I'm at or if I had the baby or not. So that lady took a picture of my mama and my little brother, and she was like, I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow, and I'm going to find your husband, and I'm going to show him a picture of his baby. And I'm going to insert the picture that she took of my mama and my little brother right here. And so I'll tell y'all what happened after that with the picture, but I'm going to continue with the actual sequence of events. So my mama a soldier, like for real, for real. Like, I saw a lot of the comments, and she really is a soldier. So my mama was not playing after, and so the hospital was saying, like, we don't really. I didn't realize that the hospital was telling my mama that she had to leave, and that they couldn't keep us because they needed the space, they needed the room. I thought that we just was leaving because I was kind of young still, but apparently they kicked us out. And so we had to leave. So my mama, we didn't have nobody who could pick us up, and it was a disaster. So my mama had to get back behind that wheel about not even a week after having my little brother. It was days. She had to get back behind that wheel, and we had to just drive. We couldn't call nobody and say, hey, we coming here, hey, where y'all at? We just had to get on the road and go. And this was before you could get on Google Maps and all of that. Like, we had to do MapQuest, printing out a MapQuest. And we started driving from Baton Rouge to Natchez, Mississippi. I don't remember exactly how far that is. Y'all can Google it, but it had to be some hours. Like, it usually used to take us like at least 4 to 5 hours to get to Natchez, but I could be wrong, but y'all could Google it. We drove all the way to Natchez, Mississippi, my mama. And we got there, and by the time we got there, the only people that was at my auntie house was my auntie, my little cousins, my older cousin who I call my uncle, and that was it. And my grandmother, everybody had left to go back to New Orleans to try to find us because they didn't know where we was at. So you literally could not communicate. It was like living in the 1800s. Like, you couldn't communicate with nobody. You had to just get on the road and hope that you run into somebody. And you definitely couldn't get back into the city because they wasn't letting nobody back into that city yet. So we only had, mind you, don't forget, we only had about 2 T-shirts, a pair of panties, and that was it. I packed a little bitty bag, but I brought my Barbie dolls because I don't play about my Barbie dolls. So then we got to Mississippi. We stayed in Mississippi overnight. Mississippi didn't have power either because, mind you, Rita had hit by the time we got to Mississippi. It was days after Katrina. Somebody said it was a month later. No, baby, it was days. Katrina hit on August 29th. It might have hit in September, but mind you, it was only like one more day left in August. My brother was born August 30th. So we get to Mississippi. They had no power. We have a newborn baby. We can't sit in the house with no electricity in the middle of nowhere in the country in Mississippi. Absolutely not. But my auntie had a generator, but the generator smells so strong of like the gas, the gasoline to keep it running. The gas smell was running all through her house. And I just remember laying on the floor because they didn't have room for everybody, but I was asleep on the floor. My mama was asleep on a chair. And she was up all night. She did not go to sleep. She was just rocking my little brother. And I remember she looked at me and my sister. She was like, we got to go. We got to get up out of here. I can't stay here. We didn't know where we was going to go, what was going to happen. But I remember my mama said my Uncle Mike looked like Jesus walking through. Oh, actually, my Uncle Mike wasn't there. He wasn't at the house. It was just my auntie and my cousins. But the next day after we had been staying in the house, dang, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember everything. The next day, my Uncle Mike came to the house. and he had on a white t-shirt. She said she looked out the window and saw him walking up. She was like, he looked like Jesus walking up about to save us. So my Uncle Mike came and he was like, Stacey, everybody been looking for y'all. Nobody know where y'all at. Like, y'all got the baby. Like, what's up? And my mama was like, yes. And she was like, we got to go. She was like, I don't know where you about to go, but can we please come with you? And he was like, yeah, like my girl got a house in Baton Rouge, exactly where we just left. He was like, I'm about to go to Baton Rouge. He was like, I just been making my rounds, driving everywhere, looking for everybody. Like, he was like, I don't know where a lot of our family at, but he was like, I'm determined to find everybody. And he was by himself. It was crazy. And so he gave us the address, and we went back to Baton Rouge, and we stayed at his girlfriend's house. Now, his girlfriend was sweet as pie, super nice. Her family was nice, but it was just very, like, uncomfortable because we didn't know her. They had only been dating for a little while. Like, imagine you meet somebody and you talking to them for like a month, and then a big natural disaster happened, and now your house is the only safety, and the boy who you've been talking to for like only a month needs somewhere for his family to go. Like, you can imagine, like, it was very uncomfortable, very awkward. And we had a newborn baby, and, you know, she had us, you know, the only place she could put us was on the floor in an extra bedroom that she had. So my mama looked at us again and was like, we gotta go. And while we was in Baton Rouge, we started to get like a little bit of cell service because, mind you, more days had passed by. By this time, it had to be like a week, maybe 2 weeks after Katrina, but we still couldn't go home. We had to buy clothes from Walmart and, you know, really figure everything out. And so we finally got some service, and we got in touch with my stepdad. Now, my stepdad, he was able to leave the city, and he met us in Baton Rouge, which was super, super nice. And when we seen him, we was all screaming like, oh my God. It was like a moment. We cried, and, you know, it was sad. And he whipped out that picture that lady from People Magazine, whoever that lady was, shout out to you. If you ever see this video, like, you really, like, you were a staple in our life, girl. Like, you really did your thing. Because when we seen him, he pulled out that picture that lady took of my mama and my little brother. And he was like, man, when that lady found me, she was crawling through the water. The water was all the way up to their hips. And he was like, some white lady was just screaming my name, like saying, like, you know, excuse me, sir. And he said she caught up to him in the middle of all of that stuff, and then she told him, like, you know, sir, like, your wife and your kids are in a hospital back in Baton Rouge. I just interviewed them, and she had your baby. You had a little boy. His name is Rashad. And she showed him the picture. And she I guess she gave him like an actual copy because he had the picture still. That's how I showed y'all the picture. And she was like, this is your son. And I could not believe, I'm about to cry right now.
Well, I would have
I
cried.
couldn't believe that lady actually kept her word and gave my stepdad some peace of mind while he was out there fighting for his community, fighting for his city, doing his, like, justice as much as he could. And, you know, that gave him some peace of mind, and we finally caught up with him, and everything was cool. But that's not the end of the story. It's so much more. It's a lot of stuff that I can't say either, but I'm still going to continue the story. So part 3 coming in a little while. I want to add some extra stuff to part 2 before I go into part 3 that I think was super interesting. So when we was in the hospital with my mom and brother, there was a nurse who was helping us, and this lady was so sweet. She was so nice, and she really paid a lot of attention to my family specifically. That's how we felt. And she just kept coming in the room, making sure we was all right, wrapping up my little brother, taking care of him, and making sure he was good. She would bring us like snacks, and she really, like, she made our experience a lot better. Like, she was like an interesting person. Like, she was like a white lady, and she wore like a little low ponytail, and she was just so sweet. Like, she was made to be there for us almost. And also, when my mama had the baby, usually they don't really let people in the room because like normal procedures, only one person could be in the room. But what was beautiful was my sister held my mama hand while she gave birth, and I stood behind the doctor. So I watched my little brother come out of my mama and I almost passed out because I'm not really good with blood and all of that. But I watched my little brother come out of my mama and I watched my mama push that baby out. She didn't cry, nothing. Like, she just said, and pushed him out. And I almost passed out. And when my little brother came out, he was crying and he was so cute, and we was just so happy at this moment. Like, we knew all this stuff was happening around us, but that moment specifically was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced to this day, and I'm 32 now. um, and that lady, the nurse who was taking care of us, this is like kind of fast forward, and like years and years and years later, my mama tried to find that lady because that's how special and sweet she was to us. And she tried to call the hospital and thank that lady, and like, like tell her like how appreciative we were of her. And why, when we tried to call the hospital, we tried to describe the lady. We told them where we was. We told them the dates, everything. Them people told my mama that that lady don't exist. They was like, we don't know who you talking about. Like, there's no lady that y'all are describing. There was no lady like that that worked in that department. Like who are you talking about? And I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it, because my mama was like, was that like an angel or something? Like, did she sneak into the hospital just to take care of us? And then we was like, was she gonna try to steal our baby? But we don't know who that lady was. But whoever she was God sent, because she held it down. And I think without that lady, they would have treated us like trash, because nobody else was really checking on us and making sure we was good like that lady did. But they said that that lady did not exist. I just wanted to add that part, but I'm about. So a quick part three, and I'm gonna make this the last part. So after we saw my stepdad in Baton Rouge, we still had nowhere to go, had to figure it out. Um, and so at the time, Red Cross and FEMA was giving out a lot of money, to be honest. But you had to stand in line like for hours, like pretty much all day. You had to camp out and try to get money. They was giving like 2,000, 1,500, 3,000. It just depended on how many kids you had, what area you lived in, I think, and stuff like that. How and just based on being like living in New Orleans or whatever. So we would go to a lot of those Red Cross tents and stuff and try to get money, and so we could figure something out. So then we got a call from my cousin who was in Shreveport, and she called my mama and was like, Stacey, like, they giving free vouchers. You could stay in a hotel for free. Y'all should come up here to Shreveport. So my mama was like, okay, well, that'll give us time to like sit down somewhere and figure things out. Also, we finally got in contact with my grandmother, and we met up with my grandmother. And at this time, it had been like a few weeks. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't really remember the timeline, but at some point they let us go back into the city. And we was on the West Bank, so it was easier for us to get like out there. But you have to go through like Metairie and go through Uptown and all of that to get to the West Bank, because it's on the opposite side from Baton Rouge. So we managed to get to New Orleans just for one night so we could pack some more stuff, and we went to our apartment. Well, we lived in like a townhouse. We went there, and when I tell y'all, spending one night in our actual house felt like we was living somewhere completely different. The power was still out, so we didn't have power, so we knew we was just gonna stay there for like a night, try to thug it out, even with the newborn. So it was me, my sister, my mama, my little brother, and my grandma. So we got to the house, and um, it was like, I think like my stepdad and some of his colleagues, they ended up staying in our apartment for a little while. So it was like a little, it was stuff kind of all over the place because it was a bunch of men. Like, it wasn't terrible, but our house was still pretty much intact. And that night, it was No, all you heard all night was helicopters, gunshots, sounded like bombs. Like it felt like we was living in Iraq, like in a war zone. It was so scary and it was so hot. And it was mosquitoes all in our apartment. And there was no power. So we all couldn't even sleep. We just stayed up all night talking and laughing and trying to make the best of it as much as we can. And then the next day, we split up from my grandma. She went to her sister's house, and then we drove up to Shreveport. We got to Shreveport. They it was this hotel in Bossier City called the Boomtown Hotel. It was like a casino hotel, and the manager there was friend had become friends with my cousin, so she was like, here go y'all vouchers, we giving vouchers for y'all to stay in a hotel as long as y'all need to. Y'all can, yeah, they gave us vouchers for free food, so we ate every single night in the restaurant at the hotel for free. We slept in the hotel for free, but we only had one room, so all of us stayed in the one like hotel room. But it was perfect because I felt like I was living on Sweet Life with Zach and Cody because I was like, oh my God, we get to live in a hotel. But I'm not thinking about what's going to happen in the future. We stayed in that hotel for about 2 months in a hotel. 2 months. And finally, my same cousin who was there with us in the hotel, she was on a different floor, her and her whole family. It was kind of fun at that point because we felt like we was on like a vacation, but it was like a when is this going to end vacation? And so my cousin, she always know like the moves and stuff. So she was like, "Oh, stay safe." Now they're saying they're giving free vouchers to go to Houston to live in like rent free for a year in Houston. So my mama was like, "Bet, like I don't want to go to Houston because my mama never thought she would ever leave New Orleans, but she was like, we going." So after 2 months, we packed up again and we drove to Houston. And I was so sad because I was just like, we gonna have to ride horses and we gonna have to get milk from cows. Like I've never been to Texas a day in my life. So I did not want to go. So we get to Houston and I see that it's actually like a city and not just like the country, like living on a farm. And we get to Houston and we go to Southwest Houston and they gave us this one story like house rent free for one.
Imagine somebody from country ass Louisiana is saying we don't want to ride horses in Texas. Nigga, y'all was on plantations.
Whole year. It was a blessing. And I had to start school. So if you know, Houston was not messing with people from New Orleans and New Orleans was not messing with people from Houston. So I will never forget my first day of school. I went to Welch on the southwest side. And I remember the principal giving me a tour, and she was just like, "Oh, Beyonce went to this school," and I was like, "Beyonce." I was like, "Okay, cool." But every night after school, I would go home crying because I'm just like, "When are we going back home? When are we going back to New Orleans?" Like, I need to like I had just got into like the school that I wanted to go to. Like, I had just joined the majorette team. Like, I had a whole life that I was super excited about. My family, my cousins, my uncle. Like, I was like nobody was there. It was just us because my cousin who told us about the voucher, she ended up coming, but they couldn't take it. They stayed for like a week and then they went back to New Orleans. But my mama ended up getting a real good job at MD Anderson, which is like one of the biggest hospitals that treats cancer. And she started realizing like, dang, like I make more money living in Texas versus Louisiana because Louisiana, baby, the school system sucks and they don't pay that well out there. So once we started getting like a little comfortable for that year in Houston, my mama was like, "Look, I love y'all. Y'all my churn, and I want a better life for us." And that disaster showed me that things are possible. And just a quick flashback, it was this psychic lady who we used to go to in New Orleans. Like she had a church, but she was also a psychic, and she used to pull people after church and give them readings. And she told my mama like about 5 to 8 years before Katrina happened that we would move to a bigger city and we would never go back to New Orleans again. And then my mama thought about that and she was like, Mother told me that this would happen, but I never thought it would happen like this. So in school, it was a lot of fights. I got into it with a lot of girls. The school my sister went to, they ended up being, she went to Westbury. They ended up being on the news for like the biggest fights, like brawls in the streets. Like
we just was not having it. Like nobody was really happy about being there, and they wasn't happy to have us. But eventually, I made some really, really good friends. I ended up getting a little boyfriend. They called me Nunu because I was always rocking the new. No, I'm just kidding. But it ended up being like a really good thing for us. And my mama was like, "Look, y'all gonna get a good education out here. I'm making a little bit more money than back home, so we just gonna stay." And then like a year later, my mama and my stepdad, he ended up coming back with us. And he ended up resigning from the police force because they were horrible, and and he didn't like what was going down with the police force, and y'all saw a lot of that in the documentary too. And so we ended up buying a house. We never thought we would buy a house. We bought a big old beautiful 2-story 4-bedroom house in a very quiet nice area. I went to high school at Hightower, got a really good education. I ended up going to college. Never thought I would go to college. I went to Sam Houston, and life just became, completely different. We didn't go back to visit New Orleans until about 5 years later. We went back for Mardi Gras, and when we went back, that city was not the same. It's not the same. They didn't made everything more expensive. It's touristy now. The culture is very different. It's kind of sad to see how down New Orleans went from pre-Katrina to post-Katrina. But I still go back to New Orleans every single chance that I get. I still love my city, but I will say it's not the same no more. But I am grateful that my mama like found a new place for us, gave us new opportunities that we never thought we would have, and showed us a whole new world. So I am grateful for that. And that's where that story ends. But I do have an audio book. I'm not trying to.
Now turn this shit.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
quick part three, and I'm gonna make this. It's a lot. So y'all enjoy it. Thank y'all on my YouTube. Y'all can click in the bio. New place for us, gave us new opportunities that we never thought we would have, and showed us a whole new world. Audio book. I'm not trying to promote, right? But I do have an audio book about my entire life, my whole upbringing on my YouTube. Y'all can click in the bio. I think y'all will enjoy it. Let me know if y'all watch it, and then I could make some more parts to that too.
Okay, her name should be in the description. The Fox Food for Fox. You can find that and then go check out her audiobook.
Now
So this is Baby Storm. Y'all grown up now looking ass. Shout out to Baby Storm. Okay.
So, in my last few videos, I made a video about my Hurricane Katrina story. And I got a couple comments of people saying, like, oh, you're from New Orleans, but you don't have a thick accent. So now.
This is a story about how I got stranded at a prison during a Category 5 hurricane and had to escape for my life. We are approaching the 20th anniversary of Katrina, and this is a story that I really have not told in depth for a while. A lot of my family members know the story, but I really haven't discussed it in detail in a minute because it's been so long. But I've seen other people on here giving their testimonies, so I decided to come on here and tell mine, child. It's August 2005. I'm 20 years old. I'm still living at home with my parents, and I have my first big boy job at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office as a sheriff deputy. My family does not play when it comes to hurricanes and tropical storms, so they pack up and they leave town. I want to be grown, decided that I was going to stay and help out at work during a storm. I said it ain't gonna be that bad because in my lifetime we hadn't really seen any bad hurricanes. So I said it ain't gonna be that bad. I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna work. I'm gonna make this extra money because I had just bought a new car and I needed to pay that damn car. So the storm is coming close. It's barreling towards the Gulf Coast. I pack a bag. I get a blanket. I put all of my clothes from the closet on top of my bed in a plastic bag because that's the only thing I know how to do. My mom and dad had put the sofas on bricks in case flood waters came in. And I left. I headed downtown towards the sheriff's office, towards the jail to start my shift, which I didn't know at the time would be the shift from hell. At the time, I was working at Central Lockup and Processing, which means that people that would come into jail, we would do the processing and getting them on to the next stage where they was going to be at in the facility. Honestly, the night started like any other night. I pulled up to work. My coworkers slash friends told me to park on a nearby overpass. This overpass, my car is at the top of this overpass. She told me to park on this overpass just in case the streets flooded, that my car wouldn't get flooded and it'll be safe. Yada yada yada. Get to work. It's nighttime. I'm on the night shift. And, all of us is there. Most of everybody that works at the sheriff's office was there. People had brought George Foreman grills, meat to grill, snacks, food. We had music. We was going to camp out. We was going to camp out and get this money and go home the next day. But it didn't work out like that. We didn't have that many people come in to get processed. So most of the time we was just sitting around talking and chatting. The storm is getting closer and closer. And then all of a sudden, boom, the lights go out. Now, you might say, that don't mean nothing. It's a storm. The lights are, of course, going to go out. No. We are in, at the time, a state-of-the-art prison jail. We have generators. There's no reason that the lights should be going out. Well, they went out. So the storm is passing. So we go outside and, it's rainy, it's windy. Go back in, whatever. We can't do nothing about it. At a certain point, the storm went on and passed over us. We go back outside because one of my coworkers says, it's flooding outside. Now, if you grew up in this area, you know that it floods. So that's not nothing. We go outside and it's indeed flooding. But this flooding was a little different from any flood that I've ever noticed. This flood actually was up to people's car doors, like the bottom of the car doors of the cars that was outside. And I remember stopping and thinking like, dang, that's a lot of water. And it was just so calm outside because the storm had done passed. It was calm. It wasn't raining anymore. And I was like, damn, that's so weird that this water is so high. And it just was like raining and windy for just a little while. Go back inside. An hour or two later, now the water is coming into the building where we are. It's only a one-story building where processing was at, and the water is starting to come in. So we are looking around what the hell is going on? When the fish started coming in is when the captain said, we can't stay in here anymore. We have to go. The previous sheriff had a catfish and tilapia farm that was located right across the street from Central Processing and Booking. So while it was flooding, the fishes from the fish farm were getting out and swimming all around, including inside Central Processing and Booking. While we were attempting to move to higher ground, we get a call from next door where we have the dorms or the cells, whatever you want to call them. And they're saying that there had some unruly inmates on the first floor and they needed help moving them up to the second level of the dorm. Now the water is waist deep. It's past midnight. It has to have been like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Past midnight. The water's up to my waist. We're going into this other portion of the jail to help get these inmates up to the second level. There's fish swimming around us. It's insane. We get to the dorm that they're having issues with, and the inmates are just unruly. They're going off, they're fussing, rightfully so, because nobody really knows what's going on. Nobody knows that this is about to be a life-changing event. But the water is inside the prison. It's inside the cells. They have to move them all to the second level. We get them all to the second level. I remember when we first got to that door, they were attempting to put a mattress on the door and light the mattress afire in order to try to break the door down. But we got in and we got out and we put them up to the second level. I remember thinking as I was walking off, leaving that dorm, this is going to be a crazy night. I just remember saying that to myself. We get back to Central Processing and Booking, and my captain is like, grab all your belongings that you could grab. We're going to go across the street to this building. Let me show you. This building is another jail within the Orleans Parish jail system. This building was called CCC, Care, Custody, and Control. It housed a bunch of inmates on the upper floors, and the bottom floors was like administrative buildings, stuff like that. The sheriff had his office and stuff like that. But this building specifically had a veranda that ran around the bottom of the building. It was a foot, not a foot. It was a floor up, and it ran around the bottom of the building. I'll show you. So you can see the veranda there. It goes around the whole building from the front to the back. There's a veranda. We leave out of Central Lockup and we crossing the street, and the water is up to our chests. This water is rising rapidly. The sky is pitch black. It's dark outside. I'm holding my stuff, my belongings above my head, going across this water to get to this building. We get here, we get to the veranda. I lay out my blanket, my pillow. A couple of my coworkers were pregnant. One of my coworkers, she was 8 months pregnant. I had a coworker who had just had twins. Her and her husband were there because people really just didn't have nowhere to go, so they were just gonna come to work and make the money. The plan was for us to stay on this veranda for the night until help came the next day to come and get us. Help never came. We ended up sleeping outside on this veranda for 5 days. And boy, it was a rough 5 days. This is a story about how I got stranded at a. This is part 2 of my video about how I got stranded at a prison during a hurricane in 2005. So when we last left off, we located to this building that was right behind Central Lockup and Processing. It's called CCC. I was telling y'all that we were going to camp out on this veranda that ran along the bottom of this building. This building is also a prison. It holds administrative offices here at the bottom level, and everything at the top is prison, basically. All the lights are out in the area. We're all exhausted. We just, make our little pallets on the ground, sleeping outside in August in New Orleans. Insane, in the middle of fucking summer. If you know, New Orleans summers are fucking brutal, but we didn't have a choice because inside the buildings are even hotter. I remember thinking at the time that I had never seen so many stars in the night sky in New Orleans ever. You could see every single star because all of the lights in New Orleans were out. At the same time, it was quiet. Super, super quiet. New Orleans is not a quiet city at all at any time of the day. It was silent. All you could hear was the chatter around us from all of the people that were with us. We had sheriff deputies that were with us. We had their families that was with us. So we had deputies and civilians. And on top of that, inmates on every floor of this building. So we, said we make the best out of it. We're gonna take a nap and wake up tomorrow, and help is gonna be here, and all is gonna be good. Everybody still is in positive thoughts right now because we like, dang, it's flooded, but help is surely gonna come get the sheriff deputies tomorrow morning. Yeah, we gonna have help. The first time that I knew that something was really, really wrong and there was a breakdown in communication somewhere is when I asked, what time do they think help is going to get us out of here tomorrow? Nobody knew nothing. Nobody knew that help was coming. Nobody knew what time. Nobody knew nothing. We didn't know where the water was coming from. There were no. I'm working at the sheriff's office now. Okay, keep that in mind. Nobody knew anything. There was no line of information about what's next, what's going on, what's happening. We didn't know the levee had broke. We didn't know any of this. We were just there. That led me to believe that this is probably going to be more difficult than I thought it was going to be. We just sitting around talking, and all of a sudden, in this area, there's a bunch of buildings that are all prisons, that are all jails. They all are under the Orleans Parish jail system. At the time, Orleans Parish Prison had about 9,000 inmates that they were holding in this area. There was a jail right across the street from us called the House of Detention. I'll show you a picture. This is the view immediately across the street from the jail that we were at while we were on the veranda. This is the view that we saw. It is 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Keep in mind that there are inmates in all of these jails, as well as deputies that are working on the tiers with these inmates, even though this storm is coming along. I know it's fucked up. I just thank the Lord I was in lockup at the time. Anyway, this is our view of the building. We're looking at the building, and all of a sudden, a fire breaks out inside of this building. And we like, what the fuck? But then we also realize, not only what the fuck, we cannot get there to respond because we surrounded by water. We walked over here, but now looking down, you cannot walk. You have to swim. So we just have to hope and pray that everything is okay over there in HOD, House of Detention, and the deputies are okay, the inmates are okay. But there's a fire. There's a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. It was a lot. I felt so helpless because you can't do anything. We couldn't go over there to help. We couldn't go over there to assist. So we just was like, you couldn't call on the radio to say, hey, is everything okay? Because everything is down. So we just sat back, looked, hoped, and prayed that everybody over there was okay. Come to find out, the inmates were setting their mattress on fire. I guess in order to get attention of the deputies, I don't know, but they were setting the mattresses on fire. This building that we were at, CCC, was connected to
And
the
ain't nothing nobody could do
warehouse
about
that
it.
housed the food for the prison, the whole prison. So we lucked up and we were able to be next to the warehouse. The food was gonna go bad anyway. So a bunch of my coworkers went and said, we're gonna go and we're gonna get some food out of here. We don't know how long we're gonna be here, but at least we'll have food and water. Now, up until this point, the water is rising and we don't know how deep the water actually is because it's pitch black outside. So we ended up, eating some hot dogs from the kitchen that we took over, that they got and brought over, and got a fire and boiled a pot. They did something. They made it work. And we ended up going to sleep. And when we woke up the next day, I was shocked. We were surrounded by at least 15 to 18 feet of water. Everything in this surrounded area was underwater. The streets were unrecognizable. The streets looked like canals. That's all you could see was building and water. I said, who the fuck is coming to get us and how are they going to get here? There were helicopters running around, and by day 2, we started getting reports because we didn't know that the whole city was flooded because we didn't really have any contact with what's going on outside of this area, this area of the city. So by the next day, we started getting reports that the whole city was flooded. The Superdome was damaged, and the mayor was asking for help and assistance. During this time, I didn't see the sheriff once. We kept saying, well, where is the sheriff? We need some type of direction. We need to know what was going on. What are we going to do? How are we going to get the fuck out of here? I didn't see him not once. We were getting most of our information from the radio. And finally, the sheriff was getting in touch with somebody somewhere that was getting in touch with us, telling us to basically hold tight. Now, at this time, while we holding tight, people in the neighborhood know that the sheriff's office is in this area, so they are getting there any way that they can. One guy came floating up to us down the street in a jacuzzi. I think it was a jacuzzi that they had in their backyard, but I don't know how he got it to loose, but he was in it and he was floating down the street and he paddled his way to the steps of this building and we pulled him to safety and he stayed with us for the rest of the entire time. So now we have more civilians with us here on the outside of this prison. Now keep in mind, I keep telling y'all that above us, all of this up here is cells, it's dorms, it's prisoners up there. There's some deputies up there too. Most of the deputies started coming down because these buildings are so hot in the summer with no air. They just started coming down and staying down there with us. So the prisoners is up there by themselves in these cells. Civilians is at the bottom. Civilians and some deputies at the bottom. You see where I'm going with this? We started getting reports and we started hearing that inmates in other buildings were breaking out and attempting to escape. We had a sniper on one of the roofs of one of the buildings that was shooting beanbag rounds as inmates were peeping their head out of this hole that they had knocked out of the wall to try to escape and jump into the water below. So as they were doing that, he was hitting them with the beanbag pellets. I don't know how effective it was because they were some ways away, but we could see him on the roof shooting the rifle. And I just remember thinking, this is a nightmare. I have never seen nothing like this in my life. I'm surrounded by 15 feet of water, 18 feet of water in the hot summer with a sniper shooting, helicopters flying around me, and no running water at all. I just kept saying to myself, it can't get no worse than this. Lord, come get us out of here. But it indeed got worse. This is part 2 of my video about how I got stranded. Part 3 of how I got stranded at a prison during Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 for 5 days. When we last left off, we had a sniper on the roof shooting beanbag rounds at inmates who were attempting to escape out of a hole that they created in the wall to try to jump into the floodwater and escape. These inmates were left in these dorms and these tiers in August. It had to have been 90 something, 100 degrees, humidity. They're in these buildings by themselves. I probably would try to fucking escape too, to be honest with you. Um, but on our side, where we weren't hearing too much about what was going on, what was the game plan. All we knew was that at some point we were going to assist wildlife and fisheries with moving the inmates to the Broad Street overpass. I forgot to tell y'all, at this time, my brother was actually in this prison. I was working there. We weren't in the same area, but he was on the Broad Street overpass. And the Broad Street overpass is an overpass that runs over some train tracks and a highway to bring you from downtown to uptown. I'll show you. So this is what the Broad Street overpass looks like today. It is a high part in this area in this city near Orleans Parish Prison. And because it was a high part and because the top of the bridge was not flooded, the sheriff's office used this as a staging site to bring inmates that they had from buildings that had flooded over to this area, dropped them off, and they had deputies out there with them with guns, rifles, all that good stuff to make sure nobody tried to jump in the water, escape, whatever. But like I said, the water surrounding this bridge was 15, 16, 17 feet easily. So unless you was an Olympic swimmer and the water was, I mean, the water was covered with diesel fuel, trash, everything, you name it. So if you wanted to risk your life and jump in there, you was a bold somebody. But this is what the Broad Street overpass looked like during Katrina. There was boats coming in and out, dropping inmates off on this overpass. I think they stayed here for a couple of days before they was moved out to other areas of the prisons around the state. But can you imagine how hot it had to have been in August in New Orleans on this overpass with no shade?
That's
I remember them
crazy.
coming to us and said, we need volunteers to go to the overpass to go work. And I immediately said, no.
Niggas need some
It's too, I'm
umbrellas.
already hot. I'm already hot. I got this little piece of shade over me from the veranda that's, giving me some type of shelter from the sun. I am not going to stand out in this sun with all these fucking inmates and bake until y'all decide to get them out of here. It's not happening. Find somebody else to do it. Honestly, only one or two of my coworkers actually went to go assist at the overpass. I know that my brother was there and he reached out to one of my coworkers and he wanted to see if I was okay. And vice versa, I wanted to know if he was okay too. And she got the message back to me. He was fine. But I wasn't going to bake in this heat, especially with everything we had going on. I was just ready to get the fuck back home. Meanwhile, back at the prison where I was at on the veranda, we had gotten reports and alerts that inmates inside. Part 3 of how I got stranded at a prison during Hurricane Katrina. Part 3 of how I got stranded at a prison during Hurricane Katrina. And some of them immediately ran back to the dorm. We take the steps. Okay, we can't let the inmates these cells and these dorms that came through the cylinder block wall on to bake in this heat, especially with everything we had going on. I was just ready to get the fuck back home. Meanwhile, back at the prison where I was at on the veranda, we had gotten reports and alerts that inmates inside of the building had broken out into the stairwells and in the hallways. They had made holes and came through the cylinder block walls and they were just running around the whole building. One of our commanders that was there at the time, he came up with the idea that we were going to go in and we were going to forcefully put these inmates back into these cells and these dorms. Remember, the lights are out. It's daytime now, but the lights are out in this whole building. There is no power. So we're like, okay, we can't let the inmates come out. We can't just let them run amok and come out because we have civilians down here, children. We have to go back in and put them in. So we go in, a team of us go in. It's pitch black. We take the steps. Immediately we see holes in the wall where inmates had to put holes in the wall and come through and were in the stairwells. I guess they heard us coming, and some of them immediately ran back to the dorms. the dorms that were damaged, we were able to move those inmates out of there and put them into dorms that were not damaged. Um, they had a lot of questions, as I would too, about what was going on, how long they were going to be in there. And basically, we told them that the whole city is flooded and there is nowhere to bring you right now. And it was hot now, I ain't gonna fucking lie. And they were upset about that, and I was upset too, rightfully so. But at the moment, there was really nothing or nowhere for them to go. The corridors were pitch black. You would hear noises behind you. You didn't know if it was an inmate coming to pop you upside your head with a fire extinguisher or what. But the bitches was in there and they was running the loose. We get we go all the way up to the roof. The plan was to go all the way up to the top floors, get them where they needed to go, and lock
The
them
bitches
down.
was in there. They was running
The
loose.
stairwells are riddled with cylinder block debris because they have bust through the walls. We get up the stairs to the roof. On the roof, there's a basketball court. And I remember we were approaching the roof. There were cylinder blocks all over the steps. And we get to the top, and there's this guy who was an inmate who was laying on his back on top of the cylinder blocks. I guess he must have tripped and fell. He broke his ankle and the bone was sticking out. And I remember at the time it was the worst thing I ever seen in my life. And basically, the guy that was with me he was a nurse and a deputy. He was like, why he was asking the guy for help, and he was like, "We're gonna help you, but why would you do this? Why would you put yourself in this position? Now you hurt and you need help, and there is no help. Like there's nobody here. We can't get you anywhere." So we get them all from off the roof, put them in there, in the dorms. They were hollering about they were hungry and stuff like that. We were just like, we really don't have anything for you to eat. We don't have anything for anybody to eat. We're running out of food. We waiting for DOC to come get you. After we get the inmates locked up in the dorms, they went ahead and told the powers that be that they were dealing with possible escapes, people coming in, breaking through the building, and they were in the stairwells on the loose. And that got the ball rolling with wildlife and fisheries coming to assist us quickly. So by the next day, we started receiving boats at the steps of the building to come and get the inmates out of the building. So all of the inmates were brought out of
Boats
the
is
building
crazy.
the front steps. The front steps lead nowhere but to a lake, so you can't go anywhere. They were all plexicuffed to each other, so it was like two at a time. They was plexicuffed, and they were sat on the steps, and the boats would come to the front of the steps. 4, 5, 6 inmates would get into the boat, and then they would boat them over to the Broad Street overpass where I showed y'all all the inmates on the overpass. So that lasted for hours and hours until the sun came up. We started at nighttime, and I think we got the last couple of inmates out of there sometime early in the morning. I remember working all night because we kept saying once the inmates go, once they're all gone, then they're gonna come for us and we're gonna be able to go, because at this point we 3-4 days in, we ready to fucking go. We're tired, and we hide. We can't get in contact with our families because all of the phone lines are dead. So keep in mind, my family's in Mississippi. They don't know if I'm dead or alive. They just see on the TV that New Orleans is completely flooded. So I remember working like a damn Hebrew slave trying to get all them inmates on them boats and get the hell out of here. And when we finally got the last,
He's like, make sure y'all have my hours.
We're gonna be coming back for y'all. First, they had to get those inmates off of the overpass and on buses to wherever they had to go. So that was gonna take a minute. Part 3 of how I got. This is part 4 of how I got stranded at a prison during Hurricane Katrina for 5 days. When we last left off, we had got all of the inmates in our building on boats and brought over to the Broad Street overpass. At the time, there were 9,000 inmates in the area that had to be moved and transferred to DOC facilities. So we were just waiting for our time for wildlife and fisheries to come and pick us up. At the time, my coworker and friend was 8 months pregnant. I don't know why she came to work. She was 8 months pregnant, and she was one of the first ones to get on the boat because she was pregnant. She was big pregnant. So it was me, her, and I think my coworker with the twins. her husband. They ended up asking me for some money because they knew.
Hey, the first comment is, "Your voice is so calming. Your voice is so calming. You should be a narrator." No, the hell you shouldn't. We all going to damn sleep in the chat. Everybody awake? Hit the like button if you still awake. Damn, we got one more story. Hold on. This nigga got 7 more minutes, and we gonna cut his ass. Okay?
They knew that I had some
We
money
gonna
on
be
me because
breaking
the
out of
car note was
everyday
the first
PJ's
car note that
chat.
I had to pay. It was the first note. The first note. And I had the money on me, and I just remember like contemplating, do I pay this note or do I help these people and give them some money? Not thinking we in a fucking disaster, because we not thinking like that. We just thinking like you in work mode, and it's not that bad because we didn't know what the city looked like. So I ended up giving them some money so they could be able to buy Pampers and diapers or whatever. We get on the boat, and the boat is bringing us to the overpass. The water is so deep, it looked like we in the middle of a lake. And we get on the boat. It's like one of those airboats. It's like, how can I explain? It's like one of those boats that has, it's like a rubber, and they inflate it, and then it's got a motor. Yeah, I'm not a boater, clearly, but we get on the boat, and we making our way to the overpass. The boat starts to take on water. Okay, the boat is taking on water, and there's a hole in the boat. So we like, oh my god. So the man is like, we have to turn around, y'all. We're not gonna make it to the overpass. We have to turn around. Water is coming on the boat. And I'm like, Lord, you done got me through all these days. Don't let me go out like this. Not like this. Not like this. Don't let me go out like this. So we turn around, we get back to the steps, and everybody was like, why y'all back? What happened? And we like, the boat was taking on water. We had to come back. So we get back to the steps, and we standing on the steps, and I'm just like holding my bag. I'm just like so anxious to go because this has been a long journey being stuck here. And we waiting for the next boat to come. The next boat come. This one is metal, and it's not taking on water. We get to the overpass, and I just remember there was trash everywhere because the inmates had sat there for so long during the day and night that it was just trash everywhere. I just remember like thinking like what the hell? And it was my first time when we got to the overpass, and I got to the top of the overpass. It was my first time seeing the Superdome and seeing how damaged it was. It was my first time seeing the dome and seeing the damage at the top of the dome, and hearing the helicopters flying around. I was like I was in a war zone. That's what it felt like. It felt like I had been dropped in the middle of a war zone. My city is completely destroyed. There's water everywhere, damage everywhere. What the hell is going on? So as we getting to the overpass, I'm like, well, wait, there's water on the side that we came from. So I know that there's water
People
on
was
the
getting
other side,
raped
the
and
uptown
murdered in the
side. So on the
Superdome.
downtown side, there's water. On the uptown side, there's water. How the hell are the buses going to get to us so that we could be able to get out of here? And they told us, well, you're going to have to climb from the top of the overpass down to the interstate at the bottom. Somebody had came through and built scaffolding from the top of the overpass down to the interstate. So you have to climb down the scaffolding to the overpass and hope that you don't slip and fall to your death. I was super nervous, but I was also like, I got to get the fuck out of here. At this point, I got to go. I got to get home to my people. Nobody don't know where I'm at. I have to call them and let them know that I'm okay. I didn't even know where we were going. So we climb down the scaffolding. We get on the bus. The interstate is dry. Now, there's a lot of debris and stuff on the interstate. There's people walking on the interstate, but the interstate is pretty much dry. And I just remember getting on the bus and, sitting down and driving out of the city and just seeing people stranded on the side of the highway, walking on the side of the highway, waving, trying to flag us down. And it was the first time I actually was able to see most of the city from the bus, and it was in shambles. It was an absolute shambles. I really didn't see too much after that because when I got on the bus and we started riding and we got out of the city, I was out like that, sleep, knocked out. I was so drained from the 4 or 5 days that I was stuck out there that when I got on the bus and we started rolling in that air, I was knocked the fuck out. When I woke up, we were in a shelter in some rural area of Louisiana. I don't even remember where the hell I was at, y'all. I just know that we were in some shelter at a rural place. I remember getting off the shelter and I immediately thinking I need to call my mom and let her know that I'm okay. And they were like, "Yeah, we have phones for everybody. You'll be able to call your people and check on your people." They had food for us. They had places for us to lay down. I'm trying to think if they had places for us to take a shower. I don't remember if they had places for us to take a shower, but they had food and stuff, which was amazing. We were out of Dodge. I was able to call my parents, and I told them where I was at. And I remember talking to them, and I immediately just broke down and started crying. And my mom was just like, "Are you okay? Where are you? What's been going on?" And I told her what I could tell her at the time, and I told her, just please, please, please come get me. And they ended up getting
If he was
there
talking, he
because there
put
was
his
no
mama to
gas in
sleep.
the area where they was at. But my cousin had gas in her car, and they ended up giving her like $20-$30 for her to drive my dad, her. I don't think my mom came. I think she stayed at the house. I think it was my dad, her, and my uncle came to get me from the shelter. And no, my mom did come. My mom, my dad, my uncle, and my cousin came to get me from the shelter. And I just remember seeing them, and I just broke down again, ran to their arms, and went back with them. And we was in Mississippi for another couple of months. But yeah, this was my Katrina story. It's definitely a very unique. There are many stories like this, and it's so crazy because the
I stayed for Hurricane Katrina at 35 years old, 20 years later, and it's my first time ever telling this story. The year is 2005. I'm 15 years old, starting my second week of 10th grade at Warren Easton. I'm just, busy worried about typical teenager stuff. It was our first jamboree coming up that week. We was playing St. Aug. It was supposed to be that same Saturday, August 29th. If I remember correctly, it was a few days before they started to tell us, they got a hurricane coming. It could be very bad. We don't really, we'll keep y'all updated. The day before, maybe a day or two before, is when they really started to tell us, all right, y'all, like,